What is your opinion on certain companies having the ability to pay for more favorable connections to the internet?
So I think my personal opinion on it is not fair at all for people, especially in smaller businesses, and how it affects them, and in the fact that they do not have as much money as a larger conglomerate company, and they won't be able to pay the company that provides internet as much, so they will have slower access to internet and to the services provided by the internet provider. So in that, it's not fair, but unfortunately it is the market that we live in the capitalist system. Censorship is not something that Americans want to believe that happens in America, because they're like, oh, censorship is only something found in a communist state like China or North Korea, but it is something that happens a lot in America that Americans aren't willing to face and actually believe in, because it's something they don't want to believe in, because they believe in this idea of democracy and freedom, but it is being taken away from us slowly and slowly.
What we should be talking about is this issue of no public web. Why don't we have a public internet? That is something I think we deserve. I've been teaching about privacy and data mining for a number of years in my media literacy class, and back in 2014, I had a conversation with students, and a lot of my students are electronic media and broadcast students, they're communications majors, and back in 2014, one student suggested that perhaps we should be able to elect the CEO of Google or elect the CEO of Facebook. What a wild idea. If we are using these like public utilities, then perhaps we should have the same kind of public accountabilities that we have in our government. Imagine like a 3-branch system of media and tech companies to provide people with a voice and a way to participate in exercising their rights in these spaces. I think that information is an essential aspect of a democracy. To preserve freedom of thought and freedom of expression and innovation, audiences, consumers, users need to have access to a range of perspectives and information.
In terms of Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube being able to censor certain groups, I would say it definitely depends.
Well, companies are private entities. And there's a difference between claiming yourself to be a neutral platform and being a for-profit company. If a company is out there making money, trying to turn a profit, wanting to focus on one side or the other, then they have a right to do so. If they claim to be a neutral platform, then they should be truly neutral. In terms of government regulation, I don't see that coming into play. If there's any type of regulation, censorship, restrictions, that sort of thing, the public should put it on them. You don't like something, you say, I'm not going to support you. What I understand filter bubbles are is people basically being within a bubble where they are only looking at things that agree with their opinion. And the internet is a great way, especially social media is a great way, that if they know that you like something, then they're going to continue to deliver suggestions, recommendations, things like that. And it's not just social media.
It's a really scary thought, because it is creating an echo chamber for a lot of people, because what they're seeing on the internet for them is basically just the extremist ideals, or if they're a right-leaning person or a left-leaning person, they're just hearing what they want to hear, and they're seeing what they want to see if they have these filter bubbles in place.
And so these filter bubbles not only constrain us emotionally and socially, but I think they also constrain our potential and what we can give back as citizens in the US and in the world. One of the questions that I ask my students every semester is, what constitutes a source? what defines a source. Because I follow artists and poets on Instagram. Is the source Instagram, which is owned by Facebook, or is the source that individual artist or poet? And so I think it's really tricky to assess bias in terms of sources, because it's almost like Inception. We have like this layered reality regarding how we access information.
But in terms of the unbiased source, it's harder to find nowadays in terms of news, because it's so far to the left or so far to the right now.
So I think that media tools have a bias, and part of what we can do in media literacy is we can start to learn about framing and to understand what's included and what's omitted, why, and what the impact is. It's the same thing with Google searches. If you look at a Google search, we get content provided in a linear way. But it doesn't have to be that way. A linear format suggests that the content at the top is more valid or credible or meaningful for whatever your endeavor is than content that is on maybe the 2nd or 10th or 20th page of results. And that's not accurate at all, but that's the bias of the way our search engines have functioned. Imagine if we had a search engine company that decided to order results in a visual way, in a maybe even a graphical concept map kind of way, where different results were larger or smaller based on the number of hits. And so we can see in a really transparent fashion how the algorithm impacts what we see or don't see. So yeah, definitely I think that we're traveling rapidly down the wrong path in terms of the web. If we wanted the web to be a place for creativity and discourse and expression, a place to preserve our democratic values, we're going the opposite direction.
Well, first of all, net neutrality goes all the way back to 2005, so it's not something that is brand new. There have been several attempts by the Congress to pass a net neutrality law. All of those have failed.
To be frank, again, because I don't come from communications, I come from education, I come to net neutrality through my own learning, and I understand it very much in the way that you documented it, that net neutrality would provide for free access to the internet and would open up opportunity for folks regardless of their own means, or for companies to be accessed equivalently. And without net neutrality, my understanding is that content becomes, I guess, provided with maybe a first-class seat to audiences in some ways, and audiences are unable to access other content in that it's slowed down if those companies aren't able to pay additional fees.
Think of the internet this way, as of right now, okay? The internet is like a 4-lane highway, okay? 2 lanes are going downstream, 2 lanes coming upstream. Okay, you have on either side you have 2 lanes. You have the slow lane and you have the fast lane, or you have the passing lane and you have the driving lane. Okay, so and we tend to call that passing lane the fast lane. Some people go speeding by at 90 miles an hour even though they shouldn't, and other people putter along at 45 miles an hour when they shouldn't be doing that either. Okay, because that's their choice. Okay, that's the way the internet is today in a sense. You want Netflix, then you're going to have faster speeds. You want faster speeds, you're going to have to pay for it. Okay, net neutrality would say everything is the same speed. Well, in theory, that's great because everybody gets treated the same way. Here's the problem with it though. We don't have enough bandwidth. That's the whole purpose of the repacking that's going on with the television stations. That's the whole problem with the spectrum auction that's going on. How do we get more bandwidth?
I think it should be one-pay use altogether, because it's not fair to those people that do not have enough money. It forms a classist society where the rich can pay more and more and more and get the faster internet service, and the poor people cannot pay at all that service. And unfortunately, it's not a fair system, and it's not benefiting anyone, because the internet, I believe, was set up to benefit everyone and give everyone access to knowledge. And if you really want knowledge to be within the society, then you should have the internet as a one-time fee and not something that you should have to pay for multiple times over and over and over.
We've gotten to the point now where you can stay in your little bubble and you can believe everything, and you can be a Ku Klux Klan member or a Black Panther or a John Birch Society. Some of these you probably never heard of before. Or you can make it a choice to be an informed citizen. But that's your choice. And, you know, I do not believe the government has the right, or anybody has the right, to tell me that I can only choose one direction.
This is your world. The web's been part of your experience. What are your hopes for 10 years from now? Like, what do you want to see in 2030 in terms of these social media companies and web-based companies?